2018 campaign and lowest three-point percentage since 2020-2021. Phoenix is 11th in the West. Here's KD on his future.
I want my career to end on my terms. That's the only thing.
Bingo.
That's the only thing I'm worried about. I get why y'all want to trade me, and y'all looking at it just from simple fact that's just business. But from me looking at it, I'm just like, it just don't make sense for either side right now to go through that. You know what I'm saying? When we just play the season out, and if that's the decision you want to make, in the off season, then you figure it out.
So big. Yeah.
It's just such a big change to make, and I've been through it before. I was like, damn, that's not really it.
S.A., what's your visceral reaction to what you just heard?
I understand where he's coming from, but I just think that, although I do understand it and we have to accept it, this is a future Hall of Famer, one of the greatest players in NBA history. A lot of times people are not taking into account that the expectations that come with greatness is a compliment to your greatness, not an insult to it. And when you think about Kevin Durant and what he's saying, you can't tell me that any basketball purist wants to hear what he said in that regard. You want to see and hear Kevin Durant talking about how he wants to chase a championship, how he's still starving to capture the trophy again. That's what you want to hear him saying, as opposed to where it's comfortable, how you don't want to move in midseason, how things can be a bit chaotic if you go from one location to another. Kevin Durant is one of those rare talents. It don't matter where he goes, he can fit in. I don't care what team in the NBA you pick. Kevin Durant coming to your squad is an additive. It's a plus. It's not a minus. That's the greatness that he brings to the table. And so when you look at it from that standpoint and you hear him talking about really not wanting to be moved in season, not wanting to be traded in season or what have you, and you hear players reacting to that in a very positive fashion, what they're talking about is sustaining and maintaining a level of control where the team doesn't have control over you. You're controlling your own future. All of us want that. There's no crime in that. I'm simply saying, considering his greatness, watching it wither away in Houston, who's not even in the play-in tournament if the season were to begin today, is an incredible disappointment. And you don't want to hear somebody of his caliber pointing to that and shoving that aside for the issues of comfort. That's where I come from, Wendy.
Rudy, where are you on this?
Obviously, what we saw was a candid conversation between,
Sure.
former teammates and all that stuff. So I think he was being very candid and about his feelings and all that stuff. But we are talking about Kevin Durant, the Hall of Famer, and also the 37-year-old Kevin Durant. Yeah. So any team that is going to make a decision to try to move him and take him on is going to have to give up a lot because of what he's done. Now, I personally don't see too many teams willing to do that, besides the teams that need to make that little push. Now, we talked about it earlier about which teams they were, but like you said, he is a Hall of Famer, first ballot, I believe.
Easily.
I know him. I know him personally. He's been one of the hardest people for me to ever guard. But I do also think that at this point, it's only a certain amount of teams that
because of his age.
Because of his age, and this is a young man's league now, and you got to move a lot of people for that guy, and you have to have a plan.
Mm-hmm. Wendy?
I don't 100% buy his reasoning that the reason he didn't want to go to Golden State was because they had to trade too much for him. I mean, that may be partially true. They were going to have to acquire Jimmy Butler and then move Jimmy Butler to Phoenix, so that was part of the move. Like, he's correct. And by the way, it kind of shows an awareness and a learning, because when he got traded to Phoenix, they had to trade a crazy amount for him. But I also think that he had his other reasons. But what I think is more interesting to me is that he's given the Suns a bit of a pass. As far as I know, the Suns were well into negotiations to trade him when he didn't know that. Now, when he found out about it, he stopped it, and the Warriors respected his decision. And I do think that's interesting. But this is at least the second time he could have gone after the Suns for going about it without letting him know. And instead, he's been chill about it. And I suspect that's because he intends to work with them this summer to do what he just said, which is to end his career on his terms. So to me, the Suns are going through the motions, and he's going, trying to, rally them. It's not working. One of the big storylines of the summer is where Kevin Durant is going to want to end on his terms.
I'm sorry, I found his statements to Draymond to be the most relatable thing Kevin Durant has ever said. That same excuse is why I cancel on all of my friends when they call and say, you've got to go to this amazing event. I'm like, that sounds cool, but I got to like put on shoes and like get dressed. And he's earned that right. I'm with Wendy. I think if this is not Golden State, I know that he said on that same podcast, mocked the critics that say he didn't want to go back to Golden State because of all of the crap that he got when he was there before, and the idea that he has some kind of issue with their medical staff. Like, I know he said none of that is true. I don't believe him. I also don't believe him when he says that he wanted to see where this thing could go with Phoenix. The man is still doing very Kevin Durant things. He's averaging over 27 points per game. He's shooting 40% from three-point range, and they are still losing. They've still lost 9 of their last 11. But I don't think there's anything wrong, Stephen A. I hear you. What you want to hear from a guy of his caliber, a surefire Hall of Famer, one of the greatest players, to me, someone who perfected the position. You want to hear him say that he is in pursuit of a championship everywhere he goes, but I don't think there's anything wrong with him admitting at this point and stage in my career, I've done this a couple of times, mid-season trades, and I wasn't with it. And I think he's showing a huge amount of professionalism by saying, you want to trade me in the offseason, I understand. This is not working. Clearly it's not working. And he is the biggest impediment to Phoenix getting better, right? Sometimes you have to get worse to get better. Bradley Beal, his contract is untradeable and Devin Booker's off limits. But I think he's showing a lot of professionalism, recognizing that this is headed towards a divorce. It's just a divorce that he was hoping would happen in the offseason, so it wouldn't be as disorienting. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Well, you're entitled to your feelings as well, and I'm not saying that you're wrong, because there is no wrong answer here. This is Kevin Durant's life, and he can feel the way that he wants to feel. But as basketball fans, what I'm trying to say is that you can be critical of the thought without being critical of him. And what I'm, excuse me, and what I mean by that is this. Looking at Kevin Durant, I don't want to see him home in April. Period. He's so great. He's so marvelous. I believe that a guy like that should be playing into May and possibly June. We saw him go to 3 straight NBA finals, win back-to-back titles. Rudy, you know how I feel. Bottom line is, if Kevin Durant didn't get hurt, he hadn't torn his Achilles, they three-peating. But Toronto ain't beating them. They took Toronto out in 5 easily. Easily. Might have swept them, okay? We get that. But since that time, let's understand something that has transpired here. Kevin Durant, if he didn't have a size 13, the largest sneaker at the time, 12.5, they go to the finals as far as I'm concerned. They beat Milwaukee, they beat Atlanta in that Eastern Conference Finals. And then after that, they probably beat Phoenix in the NBA Finals. That's what I believe, okay? Since that time, Kevin Durant has won 2 playoff series. 2 playoff series. He's home in April. And I'm saying to you, when you look at this guy, a prolific scorer, a basketball savant, somebody just a professional.